Trying to keep up with top-class cricket these last few days, I felt a bit like Linda Blair from The Exorcist, with my head spinning 360 degrees, trying to look from one screen on the 100, one screen on Lords, and then ever more frequently, another screen on Sabina Park, Jamaica, where the first test between West Indies and Pakistan reached an absolutely stunning climax on Sunday evening. West Indies edged home by just one wicket in a game that several times they looked like they were going to throw away. So I thought I'd better catch up with our expert and resident correspondent on all things West Indies, and obviously for Flow Sports, Mr. Johnny Barran. Johnny, tell us all about it.
Darren, it was an extraordinary test match, played on a really fascinating pitch for Test cricket, especially in the West Indies. I think the ball moved throughout, actually, through the course of the first day, and it was just a brilliant game of Test cricket. There was nothing really to choose between the two sides, and when it boiled down to it, the key pressure points at the back end, when the West Indies needed 17 to win, Pakistan, or in the closing stages of the last couple of wickets, when there was 30 or 40 to win, Pakistan dropped 4 critical catches, and that's what it boiled down to. But otherwise, very little to choose between the two sides. West Indies managed to knock over Pakistan for 217, then got 253, and that lead was really critical, actually. And then they did a terrific job, thanks to Jayden Seales, aged 19, the youngest ever West Indian. And bear in mind, there's been some good quicks over the years to take 5 wickets. He took 8 in the game, was man of the match, understandably, knocking Pakistan over for leaving them with a lead of 168 to get in the 4th innings. And the West Indies got home. It was just an amazing finish by 1 wicket. And that is the third, serious chase the West Indies have done in the last year. 200, of course, at the Ageas Bowl, 395 in Bangladesh, and then chasing these down against Pakistan in Jamaica. Fantastic test match.
Jayden Seales, I believe, is 19, and as you said, the youngest to take 5 wickets, 5 for 55, I think his figures were. Yep. But also, critically, he was there at the end when the victory runs were hit, wasn't he?
Oh, he absolutely was. And I mean, the cricket is such a brilliant game. And what I love about cricket is that often in what you have, I think, in elite sport fundamentally is you have elite athletes doing elite things. The beauty about cricket is that then when it boils down to the nuts and bolts of the game, you have somebody doing something that they're not very good at, and they have to do it really well to try and get over the line. And that is the beauty of bowlers batting. And the fact, they needed, what do they need? I think 17 for the last wicket. That, as we both know, Dan, we've played a lot of cricket. That is a lot of runs, You have to do 10 or 12 things absolutely exceptionally to get home and have a bit of luck. And that's exactly what happened. But he was brilliant, actually, at the end. And Kemar Roach, what a performance as well, with 30 odd not out at the end. An amazing performance by, a guy who's at the peak of his powers with ball and then with bat at the end. Terrific stuff.
He had a great start to the year with Surrey, where he sort of basically marked his card with some decent bowling performances for Surrey, and he's carried it on for the West Indies, having returned back home. Yeah,
I mean, I saw Kemar Roach quite a bit in the domestic season over here. Surrey is let's face it, at the Oval, it's a fairly flat surface, and he got 19 wickets there in 2 matches, a 10 and a 9 for, which is just fantastic. You couldn't ask for more really from your overseas, especially at home. But he's had a brilliant international summer so far in the West, and he's got 23 wickets. He's done brilliantly, and even at the age of 33, he's still got so much to offer. And actually, the attack all round, you've got Jason Holder in there, who's still the number 1 ranked all rounder, who's had, again, he's got 20 plus wickets. He scored a critical 50 as well in that West Indies first innings to set this game up. Holder, Calmez, who admittedly was in the side originally as a batsman, but is a very useful 4th seamer. It is a terrific side. The one interesting thing will be what both sides choose to do with their spin options. Yasir Shah made very little impact on the game, and Jamel Warrican didn't really make a big impact as well for the West Indies. So it'd be interesting to see what the makeup of the sides is going into the second test, because you can bet your bottom dollar the pitch will be identical.
Yeah, it's not long to wait. It starts again tomorrow evening, I believe.
It does indeed. Yeah, I mean, it comes around really quick, and the West Indies haven't beaten Pakistan since 2000 in the West Indies. It would be an amazing opportunity for them to win, and would just carry on all the good work, if you like, that they've done through the course of this international year.
Big debate at the moment about Test cricket, red ball cricket versus white ball cricket. This was really timely as an advert for Test cricket. And I think often when people talk about Test cricket, they'll talk about magnificent hundreds and they'll talk about bowling performances. But the tests that really stick in the mind are ones like this. And I think back to Jimmy Anderson and Monty Panesar at Cardiff in 2009. I think back to Jack Leach and Ben Stokes at Old Trafford. Sorry, Headingley, wasn't it? A couple of years ago. These games that go right down to the wire. You've had 5 days of ebbing and flowing of a game, and then it builds to this climax where inevitably there's a very inexperienced or incapable batsman, a rabbit, I think is the term that players like to use. And this nail-biting thing of every ball, I mean, the tagline for the 100 is every ball counts, but certainly in these situations, every ball really does count.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the beauty of the Test game, I think when you have games where the ball dominates the bat and there's very little to choose between the two sides, it's exceptional fare, and it ebbs and flows over the course of 4 days, maybe 5 days, possibly even 3 days. But they are the great Test matches. I mean, I think, I've probably watched every England game as an example, England Test since 1984. And you can almost remember every single experience largely, can't you? You know where you were. 5 days of Test match, for instance, is a body of work that will stick there to the annals of time. And likewise with this match in the Caribbean, it was just a brilliant advert, for Test cricket. Admittedly, batting was hazardous. Every single ball pretty much moved off the straight, and they're two world class. And I don't use the word lightly. The West Indies are a really dangerous prospect with their attack in all conditions, as we saw over here in the UK last summer. They were pretty unlucky not to escape, with winning it, or certainly drawing that Test series. But they are, and Pakistan played their part as well. I think these tight games are brilliant, and I think as far as the white ball, the argument is concerned, I think the 100, it's been an extraordinary success. Whether we'll be looking back, I guess, at the 100 and seeing the dangers of the legacy of it in terms of the smaller clubs, shall I say, over time. You feel, my gut feel is, and I hate to say it, is I do feel there'll be some blood on, quite high profile blood on the carpet, at some stage. But that maybe is an argument for another time. I do, Test cricket is the primary form of the game, and that's, even youngsters, my 12-year-old, my 9-year-old, they're completely engrossed by it. It is a brilliant format. And yes, I think it's great if we're getting people, to enter the game, to watch games like, the Vitality Blast and of course, things like the 100. But fundamentally, what you're hoping they advance, once they've had the hors d'oeuvre, or if you like, a couple of canapes in the form of white ball cricket, is really, Test match has to be the pinnacle, and that's exactly what it proved, both at Sabina Park and also in that epic display at Lord's as well.
Absolutely right. One thing I did notice from Sabina Park was fairly empty stands. Are they still under COVID restrictions there?
Completely, yeah. It was played behind closed doors, so that I think It's amazing, isn't it? If you look at the fact of what we've returned to here in the UK as far as large scale outdoor events is concerned, there is no restriction on capacity. There's no discernible social distancing. We're back to this is how we are, guys. We're gonna get on with this and live with the environment where we are. But I mean, if you look, across sporting events in other hemispheres, they're miles off. And I think. As far as the West Indies is concerned, the next Test will be behind closed doors as well at Sabina Park, and it's such a shame these amazing theatres, are closed to the public at this stage.
Well, exactly, and you sort of hope that seeing this this high standard of cricket will maybe energise people to get back, because you and I both remember the bouncing stadiums of the 80s and 90s whenever anyone went to the Caribbean to play cricket. Sabina Park being a notable example, but they were absolute theatres to play Test cricket in. Hopefully, once restrictions are lifted over there, and people will be doubly hungry to just get back and watch live sport, but if they can watch sport of this quality, it can only be good for the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my sort of first-hand experience of seeing the West Indies, of being on that the last England tour over the West Indies and doing all matches for Starcom on the radio, was that I know it's England, but you know, Grenada was packed on all the games staged there. St. Lucia was very well attended, as was Antigua. You know, the Barbados Test is always historically very busy.
Yeah.
You know, they're amazing. They're amazing event. You often find actually that the white ball game is followed slightly more closely in the Caribbean in terms of spectator numbers sometimes than the Test match cricket, but the engagement overall by the respective nations is absolutely enormous. You know, they play under one flag, and you know, everybody, you know, wants the West Indies to do well, and they are competing. I mean, it was a tough series against South Africa. South Africa, I feel, will be, you know, from what I witnessed in that previous series, were very tough for the West Indies, and they have a good attack. And I don't think they'll be languishing at 7 in the Test rankings for very long. But you know, they have competed here with Pakistan, who are outside favourites at the moment, you know, to be in that Test Cricket Championship final because of the permutations of the tours that they have in front of them. So it was, you know, and this is the beginning of the cycle. So the West Indies have played won one. Couldn't ask for much more than that.
Yeah, fantastic. I believe there's 120 Test or World Test Championship points available from these two games. So it is, and I think it's important. You raise a good point as well, that we can't have the global test scene dominated by England, India, and Australia. We need the West Indies, the Pakistans, the South Africas to basically be a threat to that sort of domination, and you know, keep it alive, because it will just get boring. It'll get stale if it whittles down to just 3 powerful nations.
Yeah, completely. And I mean, the beauty of the Test game is when it's highly competitive. When you have competitive Test series, you know, across the board, and South Africa eating from the top table is very important, but likewise Pakistan, you know, it's so important for them, and Bangladesh, of course, you know, they're a very dangerous side in their own backyard. You only have to look at some of their white ball performances they've had recently against Australia. But you know, Test cricket is when you've got those 10 nations or 11, how many Test members are there now? I think it's about 11, isn't it? But when they can all compete, and they all can, especially in their home conditions, it's so important. And I think, you know, one of the criticisms leveled at the ICC across recent time is that, you know, the main beneficiaries have been seemingly India, Australia, and England. But, you know, the Test match Championship, I think, does give a little more context, and it gives everybody an opportunity of getting into that final. Yes,
and it's the World Test Championship starts a new cycle. This is the first series of that cycle. And I think, as you say, the schedule's a bit different this time. It was skewed last time. And obviously, the arrival of COVID made things a little bit more difficult, but we could see a very different course of events this time around.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, COVID came in at the worst possible time as far as the rescheduling and the movement of certain tours. For instance, the last Test series that the West Indies played against South Africa was part of the previous cycle. So you know, I think it's now, of course, the slate is white clean, and you know, everybody has an opportunity of getting into that final. And by the way, what a final it was.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So West Indies versus Pakistan continues on Flow Sports from tomorrow sort of afternoon. I suppose you get going on that.
Yeah, it's the live coverage starts at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Game tends to finish, or the place tends to finish about sort of 11:30 at night. As far as the highlight show, which I do alongside Sir Clive Lloyd, of course, Tino Best and Barry Wilkinson, that's usually available sort of the following morning, if you like, or prior to the start of play, and you can certainly find that on YouTube. If you search out Flow Sports and look on videos, you'll find us yapping away with the highlights of the previous day. So yeah, do come and join us and come and find us.
It's an excellent panel. You've done brilliantly to get them together, and it's very, very entertaining and amusing stuff. And it's great to see West Indies cricket just back at this level again, and getting great coverage from yourselves and your panel. So we'll look forward to your further coverage.
Fantastic, thanks, Darren. And yeah, look, the West Indies, I think, tough, as I said, tough series against South Africa, but they played some great stuff against Bangladesh away, of course, winning that series 2-0. It was a competitive series actually against Sri Lanka, to be fair, at the beginning of the year. And now, if they could beat Pakistan here, that would be a major scalp for them. Certainly in home conditions, and would to some extent banish the "why did he do that" moment from the previous tour, of course, in 2017, where Shannon Gabriel inexplicably took a wild swipe when a drawn series was on the line. So redemption potentially for him, even though he's not playing.
That's right, Johnny. Always a pleasure to catch up with you, and we'll be directing our listeners and viewers to the YouTube channel for Flow Sports to pick up on your thoughts and all the action that's going on in Jamaica. So, Johnny, enjoy the match, and we'll catch up really soon.
Fantastic. Thanks, Darren.